There are no shortage of things to talk about here during our in-depth segments. Power bills, childcare, gun violence, affirmative action, electric vehicles, even the idea of time itself. I'm looking at you, daylight saving. But there is one subject that we kind of dove into a lot this year, something we couldn't stop talking about. The fight for Tez Walker after Walker transferred. What is Tez Walker's major? I mentioned UNC wide receiver Tez Walker. Tez Walker can play now. He can play. Oh, honey, I forgot UNC is by you. Is it nice there? This entire unfortunate episode would have been avoided. Yeah, okay. I hear you. We might have overdid it just a bit. Then again, the Tez Walker situation, it isn't so much a story as it is a saga. There are chapters and footnotes and, there's little drawings in the margins. Not everybody's here for it. Marlinda sent me an email with the subject line, Walker, writing, can you please move on? Marlinda, I'm trying, all right? My first New Year's resolution is to drop this story, I promise. But since we have another week of 2023, let's turn to the final chapter. Or it's more like a spin-off or a post-credit scene. Either way, let's go in depth. So after transferring from school to school to school, Tez Walker is now transferring to the NFL, the big show, just in time for a judge to pipe in on the subject. You see, a bunch of states, including North Carolina, have actually sued the NCAA over that two-transfer rule that kept Tez off the field. Earlier this month, the court issued a temporary restraining order that puts the rule on hold while they sort everything out. So, kids who transferred twice or more like Tez and couldn't play like Tez can now get in the game. And while that kind of felt like the end of the show, turns out there's already a new season set just off Tobacco Road. A Duke football player, DeWayne Carter, is among a new group now of college athletes suing the NCAA. They claim preventing schools from paying athletes directly is a violation of antitrust law. Carter writes in a statement, there are hundreds of people involved in NCAA sports, but the only ones who cannot be paid are the athletes. But Dan, hey, wait, didn't we already settle this whole thing, man? Didn't legalizing NIL deals settle this? That's where the athletes can use their celebrity and name to get paid for selling products and doing local commercials and stuff like that. Well, not quite. You see, one of the only rules with NIL is that schools can't make deals themselves. They can't pay the athletes directly. DeWayne Carter is pretty much saying, well, why don't we just get rid of that rule too? And the NCAA doesn't totally disagree. This month, the NCAA president proposed a new tier of Division I, where schools with the most resources can actually offer NIL deals and even pay their athletes directly. This elite league of schools would have a couple of rules, like paying at least half of their athletes and paying them at least $30,000 each. Now, that might not sound like all that much, but think about it. A school like Texas A&M, a huge school with hundreds of athletes, that's at least $10 million a year. Then again, consider they just paid a single football coach, Jimbo Fisher, $75 million to leave. They bought out his contract and fired him. So perhaps they can find an additional $10 million somewhere in the couch cushions or something. Again, sounds like maybe they might have this all figured out. But again, there's a hitch. The NCAA doesn't want to classify athletes as employees, because that might turn into a slippery slope. What I mean is, hey, sure, NIL and $30,000 direct payments, sure, we got you. Sharing billions of dollars from TV deals? You know what, let's keep that in our pockets. And it brings me all the way back to the point that I made from the beginning of these stories. When this whole Tez Walker episode started, I made the point that no one cared about his major or what it was. Now, Tar Heel fans, they were mad at me when I said that because Tez Walker is actually a great student. But that wasn't my point. The story was never about Tez or his priorities. It's about ours. Whether or not you support two-time transfers or the transfer portal or NIL deals or paying players, fine. Do you have your opinion? But we need to stop pretending that this has anything to do with education. Now, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing or somewhere in between, but if we want to build an education system where kids are getting paid to play sports in these billion-dollar conferences that schedule primetime games on the other side of the country on a school night, We need to have honest conversations about it. And this is the place to do it. Tell me what you think on this one or anything else. Hey, we're revisiting conversations we've had in this past year. There's still time. Email me, dan@WRAL.com. Tell me what you can't stop thinking about. Tell me if I say something you disagree with or you think I've left out or you have an opinion you want to share. Let me know. And we'll continue to go in depth.